you don't really need to have a lot of money or a lot of time or any talent or expertise to go on an adventure. I've realized over the last few years that all you really need to do is have an idea, and then the really difficult part is to begin it. And the idea that I came up with years ago was to try to cross Iceland. I spent far too much of my student days looking at maps and dreaming of adventures and places I'd never been. And Iceland captured my imagination, a circular country right out in the middle of the Atlantic, rising up to a peak with rivers flowing down from all sides. And I thought, someday I want to get across Iceland. And so I headed off with a friend last summer, starting on the north coast across the country. We were doing it unsupported. We had to carry about a month's worth of food. We loaded our rucksacks with as many Mars bars as we could and realized that we couldn't possibly carry enough food for a month. The only option then is to carry as much as you can and deliberately starve yourself. The guy that I was walking with lives in New York. He's an expert on greasy food and nachos, and on day 3 we had to ban all food conversation. We trekked from the coast up into the grim, barren highlands, a moon-like landscape, which was where NASA did a lot of their moon training, and then onto this glacier. You had to come across the glacier. I'm not a mountaineer. I found that quite scary. I found it very scary when my partner put on his crampons back to front, so I realized that he was even more of an idiot than me. The reason we crossed the glacier was because we were trying to reach the source of Iceland's longest river. It's a very grey, grubby stream flowing out of a glacier. It was pouring with rain. It was miserable, and yet it was very exciting to be there because it meant we could get into our boats. These little boats called Packrafts, basically rubber dinghies for grown-ups, are my new favourite toy. You can see the glacier in the background there. Once we reached the river, we loaded our kit onto the front, got to the boats, and set off downstream. And taking on a river is a fantastic way to travel. Standing somewhere like that, you realise this river's been flowing on for thousands or millions of years, and it's a real privilege just to join it very briefly on its little journey. And this particular evening was the night of the World Cup final, and for once I wasn't sad really to be missing a football game. It's a real privilege to be out there, and I hope that every year, every 4 years, I'll always remember this really special trip. So we set off paddling downstream, and 2 novice paddlers, we realised one of the problems when you're going down a river is, how do you know when it drops off to a waterfall? We couldn't really tell. Luckily, we managed to not go off the waterfalls, and when we reached them, we dragged the rafts around. And Iceland is such a beautiful country. It's wild, it's remote, it's desolate, and it's only 3 hours away from where we are tonight. 3 hours from London, £100 ticket, and you're in one of the most beautiful and wild places I've ever been. Packrafts are brilliant boats for compromise expeditions. They're not very good, they're a bit like me, they're not very good at anything, but they like having a go at a lot of different things. So from here we decided to set off to a second river. We packed up the rafts and headed cross-country towards our second river. We were making a short film of this trip, so we had to carry all of our camera gear. We were carrying solar panels to charge the batteries. Up that high north in the summer, you have 24 hours of daylight, so we thought it would be easy. We've discovered, though, there's a difference between daylight and sunlight. It rains nearly all the time in Iceland. It wasn't all hard work, though. Wallowing in a hot spring at midnight definitely didn't really feel like a very arduous expedition life, but it's one of the perks of the trade. So hiking on towards our second river was one of the most weird landscapes I've ever been through. These contorted lava fields, frozen for over millions of years, mountains striped, all the colours of the rainbow, and all sorts of extraordinary coloured streams and pools bubbling away, boiling hot, gushing out of the side of volcanoes. We're on our way to this point, the source of our second river. I love the source of rivers anyway. The prospect of the journey along the way is quite exciting, but when your river is gushing, boiling hot out of a hole in the side of a volcano, that is a very exciting place to start trekking downstream. And we followed this river till it got big enough to got in our boats, headed off downstream, and the most difficult part of this river was going through this canyon. We were both very novice paddlers. We got out, we tried to recce to see how safe it was, and we were really torn whether or not to attempt this. We knew that if we didn't attempt it, we'd really regret it. We knew that if we did attempt it and die, we'd also regret it. The perfect compromise was we attempted it. I got capsized, nearly died, not that nearly, Mum, nearly died, got very scared, and gave up and walked around till we got to less scary waters like that. Iceland became famous last year for the eruption of the volcano that no one can pronounce. This is Eyjafjallajökull. This black here should be a beautiful glacier. The ash clouds have obscured it somewhat. And walking past a force of nature like this made me realize that a lot of the reason that I do these trips is testing yourself physically against an enormous and mighty landscape is humbling and inspiring and, well, a lot of fun as well, which is one of the major bonuses of all this. The final river journey downstream till we reached the sea, the end of our journey. It was only a month. We were knackered at the end. We were very happy. We were very, very hungry. We were in need of burgers. We didn't break any world records. It wasn't an epic, but it's a journey that I hope I will always remember. You don't need a lot of money. You don't need a lot of expertise. You just got to have an idea and go and do it. Thank you very much.